welcome again, everyone. I'm Lindsay Pollock, Provost at Sarasota University, and I'm delighted to see you here tonight. We have a phenomenal guest speaker, Letty Rising, Montessori educator, consultant, innovator, and I'm just so excited that you're here tonight, Letty, and sharing your expertise and knowledge about technology, and in particular, AI and large language models. I'm excited to learn more. Before we jump into your presentation, I'd like to just remind everyone that here at Sarasota University, we do offer a bachelor's completion program in Montessori education, as well as two Masters of Arts, one in Montessori education and the other in Montessori leadership. And our premier doctoral program is launching this summer, July 1st. Our program is 100% online, and we'd love to talk to you more about our doctorate. We have Ellen Lastinger here this evening, who's our Director of Admissions. Ellen, would you like to say anything tonight?
I will put information in the chat room before you leave if you need to get a hold of me. Most people in this venue know how to get a hold of me, but just in case, it'll be in the chat room, and I would love to talk to you about our programs.
Thanks, Ellen. And so without any further ado, I'd like to turn it over to you, Letty. Letty is passionate about universal value of Montessori principles, and I'm so excited to learn more from you tonight, Letty, and how we can integrate technology into our Montessori environments.
Thank you so much and for that wonderful introduction. My name is Letty Rising, and a couple of years ago, I actually just randomly did a couple of ChatGPT for Montessori educator courses when it first came out, which was about 2 years ago now. And it's really hard to imagine that it's been that long. And so when I was kind of reflecting on my time to build this presentation, so much actually has changed, but yet there's so many people who are still learning about this. When I did a poll at a keynote at a conference recently, there's still a good 25 to 30% of people who haven't really hardly touched it yet. And then there's maybe another third that have played around a little bit, and then a third who use it all the time. So for those of you who have your screen on, or even if you have it off and you have a little hand thing you want to raise your hand if you have not really done anything with ChatGPT or generative AI yet. Like there's like nothing, like it's so like completely new. Okay, raise your hand if you've dabbled in it like a little bit, like you're like, oh, I've tried it a little bit. Raise your hand if you're using it like every day, all the time. Yeah, okay. So we have a wide range of people here. And so I might be talking about things that, some of you are like, oh, I'm way past that. So we're going to have to kind of see how we're going to feel that all out today. And without further ado, I'm going to get my presentation started. Okay, share my screen. Let's see. Desktop share. Okay. Slideshow. Okay. So first of all, I'm going to be talking a lot about something called generative AI, which is basically, so we all kind of started calling it ChatGPT, which reminds me of when I was younger, and we always said, oh, I'm going to go to the Xerox machine. And it's really not a Xerox machine, it's a copy machine. But because Xerox was the overarching brand, it actually became like a verb. I'm going to Xerox something. ChatGPT has almost become that because it's the first one, but there's a lot of new competitors coming into the space. And so it's something really for us to be thinking about that. So something definitely for us to be looking at. So generative AI means AI that is creating, it's generating. So that's kind of what we're going to be talking about mostly tonight, because you as teachers are creating things. Your students might be creating things at some point. Again, we're looking at this from a Montessori lens, and it's not something that I'm going to be talking a lot about, like how are students using this, because we're kind of not there yet. I mean, I'm imagining middle school students probably are doing that or starting to do that, but for intents and purposes, we're kind of looking at it for how you can use it for now. So, ChatGPT was kind of the first like hot model that came on, but then we also have Claude, we have Gemini, we have Perplexity. There's something called DeepSeek. Meta has something called Llama, and it's like at one point it was very dizzying, like, oh my God, how can I? Which one's better? I don't know. And if you use it as much as I do, sometimes you jump back and forth and you're like, oh, this one's really good for this, but this one's good for that. And we can talk a little bit more about that later. But so I may say ChatGPT when I'm kind of talking about all of them, just like I would say Xerox instead of copy, and it's probably not right, but it's just kind of in my mouth. But we're really talking about generative AI, in all the different brands. So we're going to talk a bit about what generative AI is, what it can do, and how you can make it do what you want. So there's really the main key applications for educators are sort of using it for preparation and planning. So there's lots of great ways you can use it to prepare and plan for your class. You can use it to personalize student work, which is actually, I work part-time with a Montessori micro school that travels to different locations. So luckily, as I get to be a consultant and work with adults, but for small parts of the year, I get to still work with students. And it's been really fun actually creating personalized content for them in certain ways that I'll get to you later on. Form and document creation, and also enhancing communication. And oh boy, I'm sure that there's some of you that already have seen the beauty of writing a note to a parent when you're really upset, but you need to get a letter to them really soon, and you use ChatGPT to soften the words that you're trying to say. So there's so many great ways that you could use it, and it's just exciting. And all day long, I'm thinking when people say, I have a problem with this or that, I'll say, have you asked ChatGPT? So there's just like a lot of things you can use it for. So generative AI. So a big part of generative AI is prompt engineering. So prompt engineering is basically creating the prompt or the question that you want to ask it. And posing the right question is going to yield the best results. And there's like a method to this madness, because the better your prompt is, the better the output you're going to get. And so this is something that a lot of people don't realize, and they sort of give up because they'll try ChatGPT a few times and they're, oh, it didn't really do much for me, and it's like, oh, well, how specific were you? Or did you keep going with it? So the prompt is a process of instructing an AI to do a task. It's basically you're telling a robot to do this or that. When I was in third grade, I had this amazing teacher, and I remember this assignment. He had us all say, like, pretend like there was an alien who came from outer space, and we had to teach him how to brush his teeth. And so, but we had to write down all the specific sequences in order for him to do what we wanted him to do. And so, our teacher asked us to, like, so what do you have him do first? And then they were like, he needs to put the toothbrush in his mouth. And it's like, well, what about picking up the toothbrush? What about taking off the lid to the toothpaste and putting it on? Like, getting granular like that is kind of was a good preparation for a ChatGPT exercise, which we can talk about, like how you can do it with students without actually using the computer, helping them become better at asking questions and refining those questions. So when they get to be using the computers when they're older, they have the mental acuity there, which is the most important thing that they need, that you can provide for them in your Montessori classroom. So there's lots of different kinds of prompts that you can give. You can give a message, you can give a statement, a request. Some people, there's a lot of argument, like, do you say please or not? Does it, waste too many resources or waste their time if you say please? Well, There's funny. I'm gonna just really out myself and say I'm actually kind of a TikTok enthusiast. And somebody on TikTok one day was saying, "Well, I'm gonna say please because if they ever take over the world, I want them to remember I was polite." Kind of joking, but you never know. So anyway, you're making requests, you're asking questions, you're giving it a set of instructions. So there's so many different ways to prompt it, and we'll definitely be talking about that. Um, so there's kind of two main ways that you are using ChatGPT when you're using words. I'm actually talking a lot about like the verbal aspect of large language models or generative AI. There's also the images, which have come on the scene very recently, and I'll touch on that a little bit later, but mostly I'm talking about the written aspect right now. But so we have the revision mode and the question and response mode. So the revision mode, you're basically it's kind of like you're gonna write some stuff. You might type directly into ChatGPT your thoughts or whatnot, and you're like, hey, can you make sense of this, make it ordered, clarify it, expand upon it. And then there's like like maybe I'm just gonna say, hey, can you write me a letter to a parent about our field day we're having on the last day of school, that they need to remember to pick the kids up by 3 o'clock, this particular group, because they're in specials that day or whatever. And then it'll generate something. So there's I'm going to type something in or cut and paste something in, and it revises, or there's can you build it for me, and it creates. And so you will be doing both of those things. I think that the thing that people have the most problem with when you are doing something maybe that needs to be creative or have your thought is to ask it to just build it itself. Whereas people are more comfortable with like, okay, I've made something and I'm going to have it help me. It's going to be a co-pilot with me, kind of a collaborator. So it just depends on your thoughts around that. So when it comes to writing effective prompts, you want to make sure to know that clarity is key. The more clear that you are, the better that it's going to be in terms of the output that you get. If you're very specific, you want to say, think about who, what, when, where, why, and how, and give times, give dates, give numbers, give names, as much as possible, make it as clear as possible. You want to make sure you fact check your prompts. You want to fact check what you put in, but also what comes out. We can't automatically think that what is coming out is true and real. It does these hallucinations, they call it, and it will say things that are not correct. I have found, strangely enough, what it's hallucinated on the most for me has been like some like high level math stuff. I've been working with a student who's super, super, super advanced, and so he's kept me on my toes. And it has made mistakes, so you need to check it. You have to know that context matters. You need to make sure that you understand, like, that it understands the context, and sometimes you need to give it more context. You need to say, oh, actually, I need you to understand. I see that you've responded to this, but let me give you more information about the context of this situation. And it'll be like, oh, thank you very much. Like, you have like given me the context, and that gives me a whole other way to look at it. It is an iterative process, as I mentioned earlier. So you're going to ask it a question and then you get an answer and you're like, oh, that's not really what I was looking for. And that's where people sometimes give up. They're like, oh, this thing doesn't really work very well, or it's okay. You need to refine your question. Like, how can I ask this a different way? How can I add to it? How can I provide the context? And so it's iterative. You're going to just keep going. And sometimes you're like, can you go deeper with this? Can you give me more context, more depth? And also the length and the detail. You want it to, the longer and more detailed your prompt is, the better. Sometimes I'm not sure like I have an idea of a prompt and I'll kind of say, hey, I'm trying to ask, like, how can I best make use of the last week of school knowing that we have standardized testing and I have these particular topics I want to get to, can you generate a prompt for me to ask that I can ask you? So those meta questions like are most amazing because like it will do the heavy lifting for you if you ask it to do it, but you still need to give it some enough information for it to make that prompt for you. So asking it to create the prompt for you is like amazing. Um, here's like an example of improving prompts. So you could put in there, list some activities students can do after a lesson on erosion. And then, it'll give you some stuff and it'll be good, but then you can make it even better if you say something like, provide a list of 5 activities that include both an artistic or project-based element and a writing element designed for students ages 9 to 12 who have completed a lesson on erosion. Then you're going to get a whole lot more output from it. And then you have an even better one. List and provide details for 5 hands-on activities that include both a project component and a writing component specifically designed for students aged 9 to 12 that are also aligned with the Common Core standards and the NGSS standards. Please list the corresponding standards next to each activity. These activities should be follow-up exercises for students who have recently completed a lesson on the topic of erosion. So there you have like, that's even like a better prompt. And then just like, oh, like if you're working at a school, maybe you're an elementary teacher and you need to, sort of record or document whatever standards you're using in these lessons, especially if you're in a public setting, then that kind of prompt is going to be good. So, yeah. So anyway, like I think that it would be, so how about like, let's play in the chat for just 1 second, just because it's good to like, shake things up a little bit. But can everybody like type in the chat a topic that you think that you would like to ask ChatGPT about, or another generative AI model? That has to do with something that any of your students are interested in right now. Can you like just throw out a topic that you've heard students be interested in that you think you could help them find more information, or you could help them think of follow-up activities based upon those things? Okay. Oh, tourism, dinosaurs, migration, jellyfish, soccer, interdependencies, more child-friendly motorcycle curriculum. That's actually a really fun kind of thing too, because what I've done often with the young students who are emergent readers is I'll say, I have a child who's really excited about motorcycles. Can you create a 1-page text at a 2nd grade comprehension level on the topic of motorcycles that's highly engaging? And maybe that has the child's name in the story as well. And it will create one, or you can ask it to create a 1/2-page text, or you can ask it to do 6 sentences. Sometimes I do keyword outlines with students, which some of you are familiar with. And I'll say, I want them to create a keyword outline. Please have 6 sentences and da-da-da-da. So, okay, look at all these seashells, water, rocks, so many things. Oh, wow. Gaining a master's with a bachelor degree in anthropology. Oh, wow. I wonder how old that student is. That's amazing. Yes. Oh, so Norman says when they prompted it very specifically, it offered 6 different master's options. So this is the beauty, like a year ago even, it wasn't able to quite do that, but now it's like fully engaged and locked into the internet. So it's still not 100% perfect in that way, but it's doing pretty good. So create a checklist for applying to college for high school seniors. Oh, that's related to some stuff we're going to talk about in a little bit that's going to be helpful too. Yes, absolutely. Oh, so exciting. I don't know. I find it really fun that I can ask kids like when they're like, I love lemurs, and we've exhausted all the books in the classroom and they're only in like 1st or 2nd grade and their reading fluency isn't that high. And I can create something at their level that they can read, and I can print it out really quickly, put it in a sheet protector, even create a little booklet for them or for other kids to look at, and it's just super helpful. So, ideas for micro breaks with high school students. Oh, sounds like we have a lot of people who are working with high schoolers in here. One time I did like a presentation sort of talking about this, and I had a lot of primary teachers. And so I was like, oh, we're going to adjust this just a little bit to that. So yeah, anyway, what's really cool is with older students, like hopefully they're going to be creating and generating their own prompts, like when they get into like the adolescent years. Just as a little side note, I feel like that now that we have generative AI, and this feels like an important aha moment that I had, um, that now the elementary years are the sensitive period for teaching the writing process. And if it doesn't happen by then you're in big trouble in terms of like they will be relying on AI all the time. So I feel like elementary teachers, like that's sort of, I mean, even later elementary, they're going to start using it more. So getting sort of them to be thinking about the writing process really well before they start using generative I think is going to be like really important and really key. Although I could be wrong too. Maybe there's going to be a way to fold it all in because this is all new for us. We're all pioneers. We're figuring it out. But I'm always just telling the elementary teachers, just like, really get that writing instruction in there so that they have a sense of how to write well before they're using these tools. Um, Here's another example of prompts, like I might be like, I just feel like I want to talk with my students about how to take care of the classroom. They've been leaving it a mess. It's been like, all over the place. I'm not sure, how to have that conversation with them. I could say generate discussion questions about taking care of the classroom. And that's nice and easy. And it's all, oh, here's a few. Why should we keep the classroom clean? What happens if we don't put things away? Who is responsible for cleaning the classroom? And those are perfectly fine. But if I use a more detailed prompt, which is generate discussion questions that encourage self-reflection and community responsibility suitable for a Montessori classroom of 6 to 9-year-olds, focusing on care of the classroom environment. And then I got more detailed responses. How do you feel when the classroom is clean and organized? What about when it's messy? Can you think of a way we can work together as a class to take better care of our environment? What role do you think each of us plays in maintaining a harmonious classroom environment? So again, that's a good example of how we want to make sure that we are uh, uh, we are refining prompts and we're making them as clear and specific as possible. And we're, a detailed, clear, specific. What ages are we talking about? What's the topic? Are there 2 or 3 different aspects of this topic that you want to highlight? And then it will give us some more good stuff. So here's like some examples of some common prompts. You want to ask it to generate something. Generate some activity ideas, which we just talked about. Generate behavior strategies. We'll talk about that a little bit later. I have a little more of a longer piece to talk about with that. Generate some organization tips for my closet that has all these materials in it. Generate a daily schedule based upon this is like the rough skeleton, or help me problem solve my schedule. Like this schedule doesn't seem to be working. Let me tell you all of the reasons why it doesn't seem to be working or all the problems, and help me find a solution and then help me create a new schedule. And God, it's like having a best friend, like an assistant right there with you all the time. Asking it to make lists. You can have checklists, as somebody mentioned earlier, a cleaning task list. Like, what are all the things that I need to think about when cleaning the classroom? What needs to be cleaned? Help me generate a list for that. A reading list. I love that you can create reading lists for your students. You know how always like teachers are often giving like summer reading lists to their students and the families. Well, they often did it by grade level in the past, but guess what? You can do like I have these three students who are reading at this Lexile level or whatever you want to do specifically based upon their Lexile levels. What is a great next step reading list for them? And so you could actually get so specific with them and so targeted with that. Or I have students who are not yet reading what kinds of quality picture books can their parents read to them over the summer that could support their emergent reading abilities or whatever, how you want to do it. An inventory list, you can have like a whole inventory of all the materials and you can have it create a nice list in there. You can have it create outlines. You have your lessons in your books. Okay, so I took a couple of different Montessori trainings, and one Montessori training had everything was very like, okay, so there's the scripted, which is like narrative based, and then there's the sort of procedural based type, like you do this, then this, then this, then this, versus the script. I personally am a person who does better with the script, like it's in story format, even if it's in like a math lesson. So but you might be better like to have like bullet points for your lesson. You want a little bullet point cheat sheet. You can take a picture from your album, drop it into ChatGPT. And again, I'm just saying ChatGPT like I would say Xerox. And say, from this lesson, can you create sort of a cheat sheet of bullet points that I can remember that are highlights of this lesson? Or can you create a narrative story that I can read so I can really understand this lesson better? And that can be just really helpful. And you can even like have the little bullet points for the kids. Like if maybe you're busy, you gave them racks and tubes yesterday or a few days ago, and they need a reminder lesson a little bit, but you don't have time. You might have like a little, maybe you have created some little bullet points and like, hey, these are the steps. Like, do you see if you can follow these steps? And if not, I'll get to you later, but here's this little support sheet to help you with that. You can outline a presentation for parent education. You can even like ask it like, what kinds of things can I present to parents? What are things that parents need most to know at parent education that often isn't discussed that could be a topic? And so I love to ask it for things that like, what is it that nobody else has done or hardly does, but is really important and of value and that could really mean a lot to people? So that's like another thing to do. You can summarize a resource that you're using for a lesson. Like sometimes you're like, oh, I need to like read some information about ancient Egypt because all of a sudden everybody's into that and I need to review something about the sarcophagus or something. And so you could go and find something on sarcophagus and maybe you found something on Google and you cut and paste it and put it into ChatGPT and say, can you summarize this bullet point by bullet point? And so that you can sort of skim through it more quickly. Or you can ask it to generate something on its own. So you can, I've had some parents who write the war and peace of emails, like really long ones sometimes. And you're like, oh my gosh, I just don't have time to read all this right now. You can drop it in there and say, summarize this long parent email. And also, like, what are the takeaways? What is the tone in this email? What do you think this parent wants from this situation? And asking it, what do you think it wants? Like, just really talking to it like a thought partner. We have started out looking at it as a robot in some ways, giving it the instructions, kind of like the alien in the toothbrush situation that I talked about earlier. But now it has evolved more into a collaborative thought partner because it has grown in its knowledge over time. So yeah. And yeah, it's asking for social stories. Yes, Monica, that is a fun one to do too. For those of you who are interested in social stories for students, like that can be really helpful for them and in their grace and courtesy journeys, and also developing scripts if you're doing teacher training, all sorts of stuff. So let's see here. You can ask it to make a table for you. You could say, can you make you can throw the biggest mess in there and be like, can you like make sense of this? Basically, I have my handwritten notes that I are quite messy, and I can take a picture of them and say, can you create some organized notes from this writing? And even with messy handwriting, it's good. It doesn't always get numbers really well if you have a lot of math problems that you've written down. I'm imagining that will get better. But with the writing, if I'm scribbling through, it will do it. You can say, take a picture of this and organize it. Uh, organize this, make it into a table. Also, you make it into a table with students grouped by ability or interest. You can ask it to do so many things, and it will organize like things for you and create tables. It can create graphs. It can create pie graphs. It can create flowcharts. And I say it, and this is most of the generative AI models that are out there can do this at this point. It can create visuals. So there's so many things it can do. Okay, let's see. So I do a lot of editing and revising. I'm a writer, and I was listening to like a TED Talk, I want to say earlier yesterday, and the woman was talking about how a lot of times people get accused of being lazy if they are using ChatGPT to help them do this. But when we say I am getting help from an editor, like nobody says that you're lazy, right? Like they say, oh, that's great that you have somebody to collaborate with who's helping you with that. So why is it that I am lazy if I'm using ChatGPT, but I'm not lazy if I'm using an editor? And then you're paying an editor a lot of times. So that's a whole, thing like that. And you may want ChatGPT and an editor. But I use it a lot for editing and revising, and that can be really helpful. I'll say, can you edit this for grammar and punctuation? That's when I don't want them to change it very much, but I only want them to change the grammar and the punctuation, because if I say revise for clarity, it will keep a lot of it the same, but it'll change things. So you just want to see what you're going to try there. Can you provide more detail? That's another one. Can you go deeper? Can you summarize this in one sentence? Sometimes that's a fun one to do too. And that's something that your students can practice doing with like paragraphs that you give them on pieces of paper at some point. Can you edit for run-on sentences and fragments? Expand these bullet points into a letter or an article. That's another thing that you can do. Can you simplify this text? Can you combine these two paragraphs into one fluid, cohesive paragraph? Sometimes I'll have two texts and I'll be like, can you take both of these texts and take the best of both of them and create one single unified document? And then I want to say like 90% of the time, well, 80 to 90% of the time, I'm really happy with what it comes up with. And another 10 to 20% of the time, I'm like, it's missing the mark. I need to go back to the drawing board, and I need to think, what kind of question do I need to ask it so it really understands what I'm trying to say? And I just find it a really interesting intellectual exercise to be thinking about the questions that I need to ask it. And when I ask it the right thing and I get the right output, it's like ding, 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 ding. I feel like I like hit the jackpot. So I find it personally very gratifying and fun. So that's why I really love using these kinds of things, because it's like a tool, and it not only helps us do things better and faster, it helps us like do things we never even imagined we could do or thought to do. And that it's paving the way and making room for new things for us to do. Okay, so going meta, this is like kind of like one thing that I like to do is I'll ask it a question, and it might be like a long-winded prompt, but I'll say, before you respond to this, are there any questions that you have for me? And that's like my favorite question to ask it, like on the planet, because it will ask me questions that I hadn't even thought to ask it. And so like, or that, and so then it'll ask me questions that'll give it more context to give me a better answer. And so then I'll answer its questions and then it will answer my questions. Do I have a question? Speaking of questions.
Right? Well,
Huh?
Letty, don't you feel that oftentimes when there are the greatest skeptics in the group conversation, that oftentimes the path they go is, well, it doesn't encourage anybody to use analytical thought or critical thinking. And I raise my hand and say, on the contrary, and it's to what you just said, right? It's allowing for the intellectual conversation to actually generate vernacular that we would have never even thought of, which does engage our critical thought, our problem solving mechanisms to get to whatever the decision is that we're looking for, right? When you do the ding, 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 oh, wow, that's it. You know it the moment it's there.
Absolutely. I mean, it's so rich in like, in exercising our brain, a different part of our brain sometimes. But that reminds me of what you just said, Norman, is that like, so I'm actually writing like an ebook right now, and I'm having like the generative AI help me a little bit with this. It's like on big work for projects in the elementary classroom. But um, it was making some edits, and I said, I said, I want you to tell me what edits you're making and what changes you make before you make it, because I want to see what those are, because I'm trying to learn from you on how I can be a better writer. And so I now like it will tell me, okay, I edited this and this was why. I edited this and this was why. And this is something I think that people with high school students could definitely like think about using it for in that way too. It's like asking them to actually really like think about like the editing process and go through like what are the edits that it made?
Well,
Does it make different ones than I would have
and
made?
this is the point where we help educate people that we're not using it to the point of cheating, but that it truly offers us a resource in problem solving and decision making in a metacognitive way.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Like we're
Thank you
going
for
through
bringing
that.
up that point.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing that, Norman. I appreciate it. Um, as somebody put in the chat, I recently learned you can ask it to make custom nomenclature cards. You absolutely can. In fact, we always have like the horse and the frog, and when we're doing all these things, like, well, maybe you have a student who is very not interested in biology, but they love porcupines, and you're gonna do like the parts of the porcupine or something. And the text comes out no problem. The images, it will make an amazing image. It just up leveled very recently in terms of its images. I want to say in the last like 2 weeks, and they're looking quite a bit more realistic and great. It's still not always though giving you the exact same image in 5 different cards, for example. So the porcupine might not be the exact same porcupine in each 5 of those, but it's very similar. So it's getting there. And so there you are, even customizing that. Now, of course, do you want kids to make? I mean, I come from a tradition where we like the kids making their own nomenclature cards. So that's kind of a fun thing to do. And but like you also might have some students who are really young and they're not motivated. And if you create content of animals they're interested in, of their names that are in there, that can be really helpful. And yeah, you can also connect it to platforms like Canva. I mean, Canva is now in there and you can do a lot of cool things with the integration of that. That would be like a whole other topic though, like for another day. But yes. Um, so I have like some of the questions, for example, on here what are some better questions that I could ask related to the question I just asked? Can you provide sources for the reasoning behind your previous answer? What are the limitations in your response? Can you break down your last answer into simpler terms? Are there any questions I haven't asked that might be important? That's kind of similar to the one that I was mentioning earlier. Can you summarize your last answer in a single sentence? What would be the next logical question for me to ask based on your last answer? Um, it's now like ChatGPT in particular. And by the way, I keep saying that one, but I use Claude, I use Gemini, I use Llama, I use them all. But that one in particular will automatically ask a question to me at the end. And I hear it's doing that with a lot of people now. It just kind of, and sometimes I don't actually want it to be doing that, but I don't tell it to not, because sometimes like it asks me a question that prompts me to like go, oh, I actually have more I want to say or think about that. So that can be a lot of fun, actually. Do you want to say a little something about Notebook, Norman? Because actually it was mentioned earlier. Are you using that yet?
Well, actually, in the community college that I teach in, I work with Sarasota part-time in Montessori Teacher College in the early childhood program. But in my full-time gig, we use it in relationship to our a semblance of a AI committee, and we're using it as a way to help formulate our notes so that as we engage in guidelines and guardrails around academic freedom, we focus on building eventually the district policies that will help faculty create their similar guidelines within their syllabi. And Notebook is it's a phenomenal tool.
Okay. I think that that might be like another talk for another day, but I've
Yes,
been
it would
a lot
be.
about it and I haven't actually used it myself. So I think that's the next step. So
As you go through each of these things, we all know we're flying the plane while we're building it.
absolutely. We are flying the plane while we're building it. And that's why some people are just early adopters and some people are like, oh my goodness, what is this? So you can use it to enhance your communication. You know, again, you can say, hey, can you rephrase that in a more formal tone? Can you express that in a sincere tone? Can you say that in a casual or more conversational tone? Can you rephrase that in a more optimistic tone? Can you make that sound more inspirational? Like I had to deliver some news yesterday, and I in a shorter message, and I'm like, "Can you use a gentler tone?" And then it did it, and I'm all, "Actually, can you go even more gentler than that?" And so you don't give up. Like you can ask it to do more and more and more, and it's never going to end. Like it's never going to say, "Okay, I've had enough of you." Or I've come to the end of my answer that I can give you. Like it never says that. And that's like the sort of the infinity aspect of it is mind-blowing in a way because it will go as long as you want to go. It will go as deep as you want to go deep and it will keep going. So if you don't get what you want, you just keep going. You can also combine tones. Can you rewrite this using a warm yet professional tone? And if you start using these generative AI models a lot, they will start adopting your tone of voice anyway. That sort of naturally happens. And you can also ask it to have a certain kind of tone of voice with you. You know, some people will give it instructions. Sometimes you have to go into the settings and change, like, this is how I want it to talk to me, like a more formal voice or very casual. Or sometimes I just like have told it, like, you know, write directly into the ChatGPT prompt. And it pretty much at this point, it remembers these things. So it kind of grows as you grow. My presentation, by the way, was created by Gamma, which is like I had a PowerPoint presentation that was old and I refined it, and then I was like, oh, it was like on a Google slide and I didn't love it, so I'm like, I'm just gonna go into Gamma, and Gamma is like the coolest thing because you can just drop in notes up for slides and it will generate, like, literally it'll take like 2 minutes to generate a slide deck for you, and it's pretty incredible. So I mean, you still need to like revise things and you might not like this or that. Like I have this letter over onto the left that says parent teacher conference and it just has gibberish right there or whatever. But anyway, parent communication. So Maybe you need to inform parents about an upcoming parent-teacher conference, and instead of composing multiple letters from scratch, you can use ChatGPT to generate a template that can be customized. You can say like, generate a polite and formal letter template informing parents about an upcoming parent-teacher conference, including the date, time, and purpose of the meeting. And then there's that. It's going to be generating. You're asking it to generate. And then option 2 is I need to write a parent letter using the following bullet points, craft a well-written, cohesive letter. Sometimes I'll just type straight into there like stream of consciousness, like, okay, dear parents, okay, can you make this look nice, basically? And it will. So, and that is just like one of the most amazing things about these kinds of things. So, um, okay, so hold on a second. I have little windows popping up all over. Okay, responding to, I talked about this a little bit earlier, responding to sensitive communication. So maybe a parent, I'm assuming many of you are parent or teachers in the classroom, obviously. Parent might send you an email that's harsh, scathing, and accusatory, but I mean, you're going to get ones from somebody in your life. It may not be a parent, could be someone else. So, what you might want to do is cut and paste that email into ChatGPT and ask the following. Please respond to this email by an upset parent offering empathy, understanding, and solutions. And then you might want to go back up and act as a professional psychologist and help me understand what this parent wants. If you really want to get into their if you really want to get into their mindset and understand their, for empathy, that's sort of a sidebar that you're like not writing the letter about that necessarily, but it could help you understand them better. But offering empathy, understanding, and solutions, I think is a really good. And so, then again, you can also put your own thoughts into bullet points or just throw in your stream of consciousness notes and ask ChatGPT to craft a letter based upon the points you want to get across. And then you can also ask it to combine 2 responses into one. And so again, sensitive communication can in the olden days, and still is true now, people are like, don't ever send something on an email that could be misconstrued or whatever. And that's still good advice, but we have much better chance at doing well with our trusty friend ChatGPT or Claude or Perplexity or all of them. So the idea of conflict resolution in SEL. So you can use generative AI to gain insights into student behaviors and to develop effective solutions. You might just type in there, I have a child who's getting up from his work and going over to another table and distracting his classmates. Who's never had that in here, right? His classmates are becoming frustrated with him. Give me some insight as to why he might be doing this and help me come up with some solutions. So, oh my gosh, luckily, many of us have had Facebook groups and things to go in and be like, I'm having these challenges, but sometimes we're feeling kind of vulnerable to share those challenges out loud. And the people we're closest with don't always have the experience or expertise or solutions to help us. And so having our friend behind the screen, ChatGPT, helping us with these problems in the classroom can be really helpful. I mean, it has helped me with a few student problems that I was a little stumped on. I'm like, I'm wondering where I can go next with this. And you can just add as much detail as you want. And some people worry about privacy issues. Technically it's supposed to be your private account, but if you worry about that, just put initials, just make up fictitious names, student A, student B. No need to worry about putting a name in there if you're uncomfortable about that. Okay. So for preparation and planning, you can use it for topic idea generation, like generate a list of 10 ecology related subjects that are age appropriate and engaging for kids between 6 and 9 years old. You can also do activity suggestions, suggest 10 follow-up activities after giving a lesson on ecology. And then you can do resource recommendations. What are some high quality age appropriate resources for teaching ecology for children between the ages of 6 and 9? You might want ChatGPT or large language models to give you all that, but maybe you want to find other resources off the internet. You want to go into Google and it will do that for you. You can go, it didn't start out doing that, but it does it now. This is like a fun one. Like, you can have it do lots of complex things these days. So here is like, you can schedule individual and small group lessons, and so here's a prompt that you can put in there. I'm a Montessori elementary teacher preparing a weekly plan for my 25 students. Each student will receive 5 to 7 small group lessons weekly. My goal is to conduct 7 small group lessons daily, split into 4 in the morning and 3 in the afternoon. Each group will consist of roughly 4 students. All students will receive lessons in language, math, geometry, history, geography, biology, and art. Please create a table for me, distributing these lesson topics randomly across the morning and afternoon slots for each day. Once done, I'll assign specific students to each lesson. Please put the days of the week at the top of the table and the morning and afternoon on the vertical portion of the table. So that is like so specific, but instead of going, okay, I want to make sure that I am getting in enough geometry each week, enough language each week, and that each of the kids are getting the lessons they need, and then like counting and holding it all in your head, you can use things to help you, like these generative AI, and it will create a table for you like this. And you can get even more specific. So has anybody here used it for any kind of planning in this kind of way before, or anyone?
I haven't yet, but I definitely am going to try it. This is just amazing. It's opening up so many more possibilities, Letty.
Yes. Just at the top in the message in the chat, somebody said they'd like to know how to identify which platform is best to use for what purpose.
Yes.
It's tricky. I mean, so for me, like, I actually really like Claude for narrative writing. It does a very good job, and it can hold, if you're like trying to write books, it can hold a lot of text to edit at once, whereas ChatGPT can hold a smaller amount of text.
I see.
But I feel like sometimes I like to like edit things in Claude and write and edit and then bring it over to ChatGPT for like a final run through, So,
Right.
and as Norman says, perplexity, if you're doing or conducting research, is the best. Like, it's going to find anything you need off of the internet, Google. It'll look for, scholarly articles for you. So perplexity is it for that. It's not as good for like, narrative writing and whatnot. So,
And Letty, I wanted to also point out just a couple of other applications. Dr. Norman indicated that his beautiful Zoom background that he's using tonight is built from ChatGPT.
oh,
Yeah, isn't that
very
amazing?
nice.
Yeah, it looks so good. And Monica Johnson commented that she recently learned you can ask it to make custom nomenclature cards.
Yeah, I kind of touched on that a little bit earlier, saying,
Yes,
how do you do that?
Mhm.
But it's a little bit the picture piece is a little bit not 100% there yet, but it's
Right.
very close. I mean, I
Right.
expect it within the next few months, it's probably going to be fully there.
And I know you talked about Canva already. That was a
Yeah.
comment from Yasmin. And
Mhm.
Monica is just reiterating how she loves this positive conversation about using AI.
Oh yeah. I mean, definitely there are some like doom and gloom thoughts around it, that I don't know that we'll have time to touch on tonight, but that there is that as well. I'm talking about all the cool things you can do with it.
Yes, it's awesome.
So another thing you can do is you can do task prioritization for yourself. You can like dump in like, oh my gosh, like this is all the stuff I have to do this week. These are the following are my list of tasks from high urgency to low urgency. Or don't even put that, just say these are my list of tasks. please prioritize these tasks across the next 5 days, you know? And so it will list all the tasks that need to be completed. It'll arrange them from high urgency to low urgency, distribute the tasks across the available time, and follow a prioritized schedule for you. If you're a person who needs that, like that can be like a game changer for you. And if you're overwhelmed, you're like, oh God, I have these 20 things to do. And maybe you're having a hard time chunking them and figuring out like, you know, how to prioritize them. You can ask it like, how should I prioritize these things? Or you can say, these 3 things are high priority and everything else like can be done at different points, you know? So it can create a schedule for you, which can be really super helpful. You can also, you can use it for student progress tracking. You can say, how can I design a tracking system for students' progress in mastering Montessori activities? I know we have like transparent classroom and stuff like that, but some people might be interested in that who aren't using it. Create a template for managing classroom inventory. I mentioned that earlier. Curriculum mapping. Take the Common Core math standards for 3rd grade and map them to the corresponding Montessori lessons from the authentic Montessori math lesson sets and make this into a table. That can be very helpful to do too.
Mhm.
Conflict resolution protocols, you know, maybe you're going to you want to give it a prompt. Give me a sample conflict resolution protocol for elementary age students based on Montessori principles. And then you will have, you know, you can create protocols for your classroom, for your school, that can be super helpful. And they don't forget things like we do or leave things out. There's all kinds of things. You can personalize student work, you know, and this is like a really fun thing to do. Like here I have a prompt down here. Generate a sentence that contains nouns, verbs, adjectives, prepositions, and adverbs that has the names Wyatt and Mario and is about lemurs. I think I've talked. And, you know, I had it, and then it created Mario handed Wyatt a striped blanket as they sat under the leafy canopy, quietly observing the curious lemurs with quiet fascination. Are they going to want to symbolize that sentence with their grammar materials? Probably, because they're in it and it's about lemurs, which they love, and that's going to be a whole lot of fun. You can say, okay, I want you to create 10 sentences about Mario and Wyatt on the topic of lemurs having these parts of speech or having subject, predicate, direct object, adverbial modifier, whatever you want to have in there. So they can do sentence analysis, they can do like use it for like grammar boxes. And even for your older primary students, they just love having their name in things, which is a whole lot of fun. So, and let's see here. You can like personalize like by Lexile level, customize math word problems. You can do word problems with their names in them as well. And that makes things really interesting. Like I have children working on dynamic subtraction. Can you put their names in and create something? Curating reading lists, personalizing writing prompts, lists of steps and sequences. Okay, I've talked a lot about this already. So, and then I'm going to actually this is our ending top here, is that understanding the art of asking the right questions to AI can yield more effective and relevant responses. Using generative AI to customize educational content enhances individual learning experience for students. You want to generate various types of documents like parent-teacher conference templates. Generative AI can assist in communication. It helps in preparation and planning and teaching prompt engineering to students. And do you have any questions at this point? And I'm leaving this up because I understand some of you are scanning a QR code for a professional development reason. But if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Letty, there's one question in the chat from Laura. She's asking, will you be sharing the presentation document?
I mean, I'm happy to do that. Are you sharing the recording? I could share the doc too.
Yes, the recording will be on our Sarasota University YouTube channel. You can find copies, the recording.
I mean, I can, here's my email, and you can also, should I do it that way, or would it,
Sure, that'd be great, Letty. And I can also include a link
Okay,
to
so
your
this is my
website? Oh,
email.
good.
Yeah. If you are interested in like having like the slide deck, I will you could just email me and I will send it to you.
That is so generous of you, Letty. Thank you. You know, you covered so many things that I hadn't even thought to ask of AI, and so many great ideas. I am so grateful for your time tonight. And thank you to everyone who made time to be here with us this evening. Um, again, this is Sarasota University, and we're so indebted to you, Letty, for sharing your insights and expertise. And please check out the chat to connect with Letty directly, lettyrising@gmail.com, or visit her website, lettyrising.com. Thank you, everybody. I hope you have a
Thank
great long
you.
weekend ahead. Be safe, and we hope to see you at SU. Take care.